There we are. There's live stream. Hi, everybody. We are doing it. Let's see if I can pause this right here. There we go. It's the pre-show for today's Network Plus study group. We've got all questions and answers coming to you live. From the very first hour is me asking you questions. Then after that, I open up the phone lines. It's the after show, and you can ask me questions from the chat room or from call-in. This is right now the 10 minutes prior to me starting. This is not what you see. Normally during the show, you actually see me. Hi. Hi, everybody. In the meantime, I'm getting things ready here, making sure I'm recording there. I'm recording down here. It's me saying the same thing I always say, just because I need a sanity check. Audio levels are set on the mixer. Video graphics are loaded. I think we're in pretty good shape. Stream is running. I can see the stream running. I got the analytics up, so it'll tell me if there's a problem. I wish I could resize this page. I have to ask my friendly folks at YouTube if they would allow me to resize that page. I wonder if I did it, could I do it full screen and then just move it over? That's what I'll do. We'll just do it this way. That's much better. Not quite as elegant as me using precisely half the page, but close enough for what we're doing here. So that works fine. Hi, everybody. Hi, chat room. How am I? I'm doing great. How's everybody doing there? Some folks checking in already. Canada's here. They were the first ones to throw it out. The UK is checking in. We picked a good time frame, I think, because I can catch the end of the day in the UK, the beginning of the day in California, on the West Coast, Oregon, Seattle, Vancouver, and even further, I guess. I mean, if you wanted to stay up early into the morning, that would be how it works. We got folks from India and Slovakia and Vegas. South Africa's here. Ohio, welcome. Chicago. Hey, Paris, France. Thanks for joining us. It is lunchtime. I already had my lunch. Mrs. Professor Messer fed me. We are all set to go. I will make it through the presentation because I have food. I had my lunch early. There's Newark and Bolivia and Houston, Texas. Welcome. Vegas again. Boston, Knoxville. The Philippines. Welcome. There's Charleston and New York and Atlanta. There's Florida checking in. Hey, Jacksonville. San Diego, Nepal. Shropshire in the UK. Can't say it right. Austin, welcome. You know, we've got so many questions, all brand new questions for this Network Plus. This will be pretty good to have this here. Maryland's checking in. Danbury, Connecticut. Saudi Arabia is here. Hey, Bluebell, Pennsylvania. Nice to have you here. Chicago again. Bourbon, Indiana is here. The Caribbean, welcome. Illinois, land of corn. St. Louis, welcome. There is, I know, I said Shropshire. Did I do that? It's sort of like not knowing how to pronounce anything in the Northeast United States. It's that kind of problem because it's all the same stuff as the UK. There's Nigeria, welcome. Fontana, Manila, welcome. There's Detroit or Detroit. One of the two is here. I guess it depends on who it is in that place. If it's me, it's Detroit. I can't say anything today. We're going to see if we can get through this first hour. We've got all new questions that I put together last week. I did it really early for this one, which means I know nothing about what I did. This is all. I didn't even review the questions prior. I hope this works. I should probably at least go through them in my breakout here, in my prep. That's something to put on the list. Maybe I'll do that real quick. Put it on my list of things. I've got a checklist. Let's put on the checklist just before the event. Go through the questions on Socrative and in the presentation. See? Get all that done. All right. Let's go back to where we were. It was Network Plus. It was August. Okay. Now it's saved in the cloud, so it's legit. I think that's how it works. Nothing is real unless you save it in the cloud. Is that the story? Oh, I'm going to need some more cinnamon spray. We're getting low. Got to get that. For window management, that's not my problem. I use for Windows management on Mac OS. What's the name of it? Where is it? Did I move it? I use Spectacle. And it works great. The problem, so I can go full screen. I can put it on the left side of the screen. I can put it on the right side of the screen. Using the Windows works great. But when you take the YouTube Studio window, which is what you were seeing right here, the YouTube Studio window is where you control turning on the stream, turning off the stream. You can view the stream health. You can view your analytics. You can see the settings for the stream. You can make changes real quick if you need to. This is where you would insert ads if that was the type of thing you were doing. The problem is when I make it half the size of the screen, I can't see the analytics. The chat that's popped out hides it. So I end up having to make it full screen and then just move it over here. So it's definitely a low-tech answer to make that happen. But I love the concept, the magnet, the spectacle that I'm using here. Just you got to have it so you can put the windows exactly where you want them. It's kind of like that snap feature in Windows for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about. You know, Windows, you can move it over and it'll snap to half the screen or snap to the top. And it's nice that this extends that functionality so you can do amazing things with it. Between that and I use in Mac OS extensively the Keyboard Maestro editor. If you've never used that Keyboard Maestro editor, it is a macroing function for Mac OS that is emerging. Just incredible. So whenever I send you out the study group CEU emails that are digitally signed, that are created, it grabs those, parses what you've sent me, puts everything into the right place on the page, and sticks it into the mail message instantly. So that all I have to do is make sure everything looks okay, click send, and it sends over. Those are one of the two biggest utilities in Mac OS that I could not live without to have that functionality. There's similar functionality in Windows. I'm not saying it's a Mac thing. I'm saying that's what I use because most of what I do day to day is in the Mac OS. But of course I do. You're watching the stream. In fact, Windows 10 is running up here that is doing the stream part. I obviously have a Windows 10 VM that's practically always running on my desktop because I'm doing something relating to Windows with the study materials. And then, of course, if you're on my website right now, professormesser.com, it's all Linux. So I don't care what operating system you use. Use the one you want. I don't have a dog in that hunt. So you do the one that is good for you. You do you, as they say. And you're fine to have that there. Works for me. Works for me. John's doing a router install for AT&T in Utah right now. Is this like doesn't sound like if you had to come from California to do it, it sounds like a legit router. Like this is a corporate type Cisco-ish router to put in. This is not somebody who needs a home router cable modem box, modem CSU, DSU box kind of thing. So that's kind of how it works. So we'll get there. Oh, why is this timing out? That's not good. We're about ready to go. 1 minute to go, everybody, and we'll get this thing going. We've got plenty to go through with Network Plus, but if you have other questions outside the scope of Network Plus, hold them to the second hour. Write them down. Make a note. There's some of them for there. We'll be able to do that. Why is there a gap in Network Plus study groups? There's none for June or July. I may not have put them into the playlist, but they are absolutely on my site under the replays for June and July. They are there. I'll make sure I get all the replays. I'll make sure I get all the YouTube playlists up to date today. That's probably the one thing I have not added them to, but they are there. They're on my channel. They're just not in the playlist yet. So I will do that. Thank you for bringing that up. Sometimes I forget to put all of those different things in place. I need to put them on my list. They're probably on my list. And people are already saying hi to Lori. You folks are so nice. She did say thank you for saying hello to her. She likes it when the chat room says hi. She has to watch this whole thing when we're done. So speaking of which, it's probably time to give her something to watch. So let's start the study group. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2020 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group, coming to you live from our world headquarters. Thanks for joining us on our live stream. This entire hour will be dedicated to watching and learning about the Network Plus exam. We will be focusing specifically on questions for the N10-007. We'll talk more about that in a moment. If you are here watching this live, you can participate in real time. You can answer the questions as I ask them. If you're on a replay, you can't do this, but you're welcome to follow along with us anyway. The way that you would do this if you're watching live is you go to, pop up a new browser window, go to this address, professormesser.com/QA. That's professormesser.com/QA. There'll be a message or a question waiting for you right there that you can answer, and it's available. There's also, if you would like to do this from a mobile app, there's an app that you can use. The app is the Socrative Student app. Make sure you get the Socrative Student app. They also make a teacher app. That's the one for me. You want the student app, that's the one for you. Find it on your favorite app store. It will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you do all of those things right, if you have followed those directions to a T, there will be a question waiting for you. Let's look at the first question of the month that asks, a user in the shipping department is receiving an IP address during startup, but the assigned address is for the marketing department's network. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be a VLAN mismatch? Would it be an incorrect duplex? Would it be near-end crosstalk? Would it be a dual stack, or would it be redundant circuits? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Don't put the answers in the chat room. Don't put any hints in the chat room. We will come back to this question in just a moment, so lock that in. Thanks for being here on the study group, everybody. We love to do these every month. We have one of these study groups available. You can go back years and look at all the study groups we've done for Network Plus. And in fact, if you're studying for your Network Plus, I highly recommend you go back to at least the last 12 months, because there's a brand new performance-based question every month. So you get 12 performance-based questions just by going back and having a look at those. You can find them on my YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube, although the chat room has informed me I need to update my playlist, so the last couple of months are in there, which I will do when this is done. So by the time, hopefully, you're watching this on a replay, I've already gone through and made sure the playlists are up to date at professormesser.com/YouTube. You can also get a free question every month or every week. We do one a week for Network Plus. That's available on professormesser.com/Twitter. And if you're an Instagram person, I put them on Instagram as well at professormesser.com/Instagram. They're in a carousel. So you get a question, then you slide, and you can see the answer. So it's kind of nice to have that functionality. If you're someone who's followed us, you know that we have all of our training materials available for you to watch online for free, every minute of every video. Some people would like to help participate and contribute to the things we do. One way that you can do that without any money coming out of your pocket is when you are shopping at Amazon. You can go to professormesser.com/Amazon and click there before you go to Amazon. Amazon will give us a small stipend, a small bit of money, a commission if you happen to buy anything, but the price you pay stays the same, which is kind of nice. An easy way to support what we do here without having to pay directly out of your pocket, professormesser.com/Amazon. Today, we're going to talk all about the N10-007. That is the latest version of the Network Plus exam. It was released on March the 1st of 2018. If we had to estimate when the retirement would be for this, the retirement of these exams usually is about 3.5 years once they are released. That puts the retirement date somewhere around September of 2021. So if you are watching this in August of 2020, you have plenty of time before this exam happens to retire. And of course, you should always check in because these dates are subject to change. That's just an estimate on my side based on what's happened in the past. And recent things that have occurred in the world could change that completely. So that's my disclaimer to you anyway. It's a single exam you have to take. It's a 90-minute exam. You get a maximum of 90 questions on the exam. You could get fewer than 90 questions. The exam is scored on a scale from 100 to 900. So you have to score a 720 of those two. So of the 800 possible questions, you need 720 of them. Is that how it works? I think that is. It's difficult to follow, isn't it? They sort of make it that way. They obfuscate the entire process. The best advice I can give you is just answer all the questions right. If you do everything you can to answer all the questions right, that number will be as high as it can possibly be. The exam itself is going to be multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. We'll talk about performance-based questions as well when we get to those. I have a performance-based question for you today. If you want to know where I'm getting these questions from and where all of these materials come from, they start at the exam objectives. Make sure you get a copy of these objectives. They're absolutely free from ProfessorMesser.com/objectives, and click the link to go to the CompTIA site and download your exam objectives. I also want to let you know another way to help support what we're doing is I've taken all of my Network Plus materials, my course notes, my video downloads, my audio MP3s. I've even created products specific to this particular success bundle called my Exam Hacks ebook. My Exam Hacks ebook is one where I give you about 14 tips on how you can make the test taking process easier. And it includes both taking the test in person and taking the test at a testing center. Take the exam at home now. There's still the same rules apply when you're at home. The only difference is you're at home rather than a testing center. We'll talk more about that. You can find out more about that at ProfessorMesser.com/netsuccess. This podcast is available to watch in a video replay immediately afterwards. There are also links from this on my website in the archives, and you can get an audio version of this available. It's usually available later in the day. I have to edit it together and upload it, but you can find it at ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. There's also the podcast links there, the RSS links. So if you wanted to have this also available in your podcasting program, the XML is right there that you could pull those down and add it to your podcast listening program. As the chat room knows, my marketing manager, Lori, goes through this entire study group afterwards and puts timestamps into the links. And as you've probably seen on YouTube, it's now showing up in the bar at the bottom of the video, so you can see exactly when the questions and the answers are showing up. Thank you, Lori, for doing this. She's watching the replay and watching the replay of the chat go by. So if you're someone who likes that, feel free to put a note in the chat. She'll see it go by. And she says hi to everybody, in case you're wondering. So let's go back to that question I asked originally, which was, a computer in the shipping department is receiving an IP address during startup, but the assigned address is for the marketing department. Well, that doesn't sound right. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Let's see how we did. 95% of you say that's a VLAN mismatch. This is a rewind question from last month, so hopefully some of you did remember this question from last month. Only 3% said near in crosstalk. Only 2% said incorrect duplex. A single percentage said dual stack, and nobody said redundant circuits. Well, if you're getting an IP address or you're connected to a network that is the wrong network, then it's probably an issue with the VLAN configuration on your switch. You would need to go to the switch to look at the VLAN configuration and make sure that the device connecting to that interface has been assigned to the right network. This happens all the time. It's a very common problem. So this was where the network administrator would have a look at the config. Where is that user connecting? They're connecting into this interface on the switch. Oh, yes, I have that set for marketing. Let me click the button, change their VLAN to be the shipping and receiving VLAN, have them reacquire an IP address, and everything will be back to normal again. So that is the right question. Those of you that answered VLAN mismatch, that is the one. So well done with that. Not a difficult one if you were watching last week and having this here, or last month, and having that question available. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that the first new question of every study group is a question that is a performance-based question. Now, when you take your exam, the first handful of questions you get on the exam will not be multiple choice questions. It might throw you. If you're not prepared for this, it throws people all the time. I get messages where people said, I was not expecting these. So I want you to absolutely understand you'll get a handful of questions at the beginning that are anything but multiple choice. So what I mean by that is they could be questions where they put you to a command prompt and have you perform a function. They might be drag and drop questions. You might have to do something on a network diagram, for example. They might be questions where you have to match things together. They might be questions where you have to put things in order from highest to lowest, or fastest to slowest. So you may be moving things around the screen. So you never know exactly what the style of question is going to be in those performance-based questions. All you know is that they are not multiple choice. So the first question I have for you is one that is not a multiple choice question. This is kind of a matching question. It's really a fill in the blank question. And here is your brand new, never seen before, very first question of the month, performance-based question. And it asks, associate an OSI layer to each description. Associate an OSI layer to each description. And I have 5 different descriptions here that I would like you to associate an OSI layer to this. Now, if you are going through this, you know the answers. Where you would put in the answers is at professormesser.com/QA. That's where you would put the answer in. So I'm going to step through all 5 of these, especially for those of you that are driving or listening and you're not looking at the screen. These 5 things are: a server uses a default route to reach the internet. What OSI layer is most associated with that? The next one is a web server asks for a credit card number during checkout. That happens to me a lot. The third one is the MAC address of a workstation is Charlie Echo 4463 Alpha 9 Echo 405. What OSI layer is that? The fourth one is an email server communicates over TCP 993. And lastly, a fiber connects 2 buildings across a campus. So there you go. You have 5 separate OSI layers to break out. If you think they're all OSI layer 9, you would put 99999. And I would say 9. That's not correct. That is not the right answer. So see if you happen to know what these are. Lock them in. A lot of you are putting the answers in right now, professormesser.com/QA. I see them coming in. I see them locked down. You don't have to write it all out. Just give me a number. We're not really compiling the answers for this one because it absolutely is one that has no way to compile them together for all of those things. So we will see. You happen to know what this is, and breaking all of these things out. And it is not, as Manny is alluding to, I'm going to show that. It's funny when YouTube decides what to show in the chat or not, but it is not 8675309. Where did you happen to get that number, Manny? I have to know. These are the 5 OSI layers. OSI, of course, is one of those things you do have to know for the Network Plus exam. And so as we go through this, we're going to figure out what these happen to be. Let's see if I can break them out. A number of you, I'm waiting for everyone to put these in to the chat, or not into the chat. They're putting them into professormesser.com/QA. So let's see if we can break out each one of those. Let's start at the top. Associate an OSI layer to each one of these descriptions. We'll start with a server uses a default route to reach the internet. Of all of these, that's probably the one that you really do have to break through and figure out, what am I referring to? A default route is obviously the route that is being used to traverse an IP network. So that means that I'm dealing with an OSI layer 3. That is the routing layer. That's the IP address layer. That's everything that deals with anything relating to IP. So if you are Internet Protocol and you're dealing with a route, a subnet mask, an IP address, that's layer 3. Next on the list is this web server asks for a credit card number during checkout. What? You haven't saved your credit card number? You have to type it in every time? Me too. And that is one that is, because we're seeing it on the screen, our human eyes have identified that the server is asking for this information. That is an application that is being used. That's our application layer, layer 7. Layer 7, web server asking for a credit card during checkout. Whenever we break out the next one, the MAC address of a workstation, and I even give you the MAC address, Charlie Echo 4463 Alpha 9 Echo 405. That's a big MAC address. I think it's my MAC address. Wait a second. MAC address of a workstation. When you're talking about a MAC address, you're talking about a data link layer. Data link layer of Ethernet. The data link layer is layer 2 of the OSI model. Anytime you see a MAC address, you see something talking about switching, you see something talking about a function of the switching dealing with MAC addresses, that's OSI layer 2. Next on the list is that an email server communicates over TCP 993. Now, initially, I saw email server and thought that's an application, but we're really talking about the email server communicating over a very specific TCP port number, TCP 993. And when you're looking at anything dealing with port numbers, whether it's a TCP port number or a UDP port number, that's a transport layer, layer 4. That is always, if you ever see a port number, layer 4. Talking about TCP, layer 4. Dealing with UDP, layer 4. So just keep that in mind. And lastly, a fiber connects two buildings across a campus. No mention there of IP addresses, port numbers, MAC addresses, applications, encryption, sessions, nothing. There's nothing there, but it does talk about fiber connecting buildings, which means there has to be some signal going over that fiber, and that's layer 1, your physical layer of the OSI model. So your server using a default route to reach the internet is layer 3. Web server asking for a credit card number is layer 7. MAC address of a workstation, layer 2. Email server with a port number, TCP 993, that's layer 4. And a fiber or some type of physical medium to be able to connect devices together is layer 1. So there you go. Those are the 5 OSI layers. A lot of you did really good as I was flipping through all of the answers with this one. A lot of you knew that one very, very well. Some of you even knew the names, which is even a little bonus there. I was just asking for the number. But if you happen to know the name too, that is helpful as well. So hopefully that will help you too. Now, if you don't recognize this, if you don't know what I was asking about, if you're not familiar exactly with the details of these OSI layers, this is the language that network professionals use to describe what we're seeing on the screen, to describe a problem that's happening, to describe the things that we've checked that work and the things that we don't work. Well, I checked layer 1, you're good. All right, well, we know it's not layer 1. What does that mean? What is it? So you have to know those things because we use these all the time. It's a very, very common way of communicating for all of this. Generally speaking, layers 5, 6, and 7 tend to blend together. It's always been that way because it's really the way the application is occurring. Once you get past the network and you're dealing with sessions and encryption and applications, that's really more of 5, 6, and 7. And because they blend together, I don't tend to parse those out. It becomes a little bit more of an issue trying to figure out the details. And quite honestly, squeezing them together most of the time, unless you're dealing with an application problem, is just fine. You kind of put the application above layer 4, and all of us network folks deal with layer 4 and lower. That obviously is changing a lot lately, especially as people are mentioning in the chat room, things with next generation firewalls, which are much smarter than traditional firewalls. Those are the things that really make a difference. Now, you do have to know the application. You do have to understand the encryption. You do have to understand what's happening with the sessions. It becomes even more important. Hopefully, you're familiar with that. That was your performance-based question of the month. If you want more of these performance-based questions, there's a different one every month going back for the year. So you can always go back to the replays of this and get a different performance-based question over the last 12 months. Let's do another one. Let's do another question, but now we're going to shift gears back to a multiple choice question. So here is the multiple choice question I have for you that asks, a desktop administrator needs to control the screen of a Windows 10 workstation from their Mac OS laptop. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be VNC, RDP, SNMP, SSH, or IPsec? A desktop administrator needs to control the screen of a Windows 10 workstation from their Mac OS laptop. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be VNC, RDP, SNMP, SSH, or IPsec? You think you know the answer? Please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormester.com/QA and lock in your answer. That would be the way to do it. No hints in the chat room. Don't want to do that either. Figure out all the details of this. Is that layer 7? I think that's layer 7. You're right. That is layer 7. That's exactly what that is. You're definitely good. That's a different question. I didn't ask that. Practically all the questions I have, I think, are layer 7 questions. Practically all the problems I have are layer 7 questions. So that's another challenge with this. Again, no answers and no hints in the chat room. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're going to take it as if we were actually sitting there for the exam. And no Googling. Don't want to Google this either. That's not what you're trying to do. So go through this and see if you can figure out those details. Some of you may have done this before from your Mac OS laptop. So you'll figure out the details of this as well. And figure out making sure what all these happen to be. I know that's the way I would break down what this is dealing with too. What's my favorite note-taking digital method? It's interesting you'd ask because I just shifted everything over from my note I was using. I used to use Evernote, and then they changed all of their licensing, so I threw that out. And I went to Microsoft OneNote? That is horrible. OneNote is an awful experience on Mac OS. I understand there's people on Windows that think it works great for them. But OneNote is just miserable on the Mac, a horrible experience that never was good. And by never, I mean never. You never want to say never. It's awful. It's just horrible. So I don't know why I didn't, in the very beginning, do this. I just went to using notes, the notes that are in Mac OS. It's fantastic. It's stored in the cloud. It syncs to all your iOS devices. What was I thinking? It's perfect. And I moved everything over in a couple days and I was done. Threw out OneNote, put it in the trash, emptied the trash, burned the trash can. That's how much I despise that. Let's see how you did with this question, which asked, a desktop administrator needs to control the screen of a Windows 10 workstation from their Mac OS laptop. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Let me refresh because there's a small little bug with the folks at Socrative where it's not showing percentages. They're going to fix it for me. I've already been talking to them for those of you watching along. Is it VNC, RDP, SNMP, SSH, or IPsec? The important part was that we were connecting and needing to share the screen of a Windows 10 workstation. And for Windows 10, you would think it would be RDP, but we were doing this from a Mac OS laptop. So would it be VNC? And you can see we're about split on this one. We have 48% of you said RDP and 41% of you said VNC. We have 8% that said SSH, 2% said IPsec, 1% said SNMP. So the real question, we're on our Mac. We need to connect to this Windows device. If you are connecting to a Microsoft device, then you're going to use Microsoft's remote desktop protocol. That is what we would use to be able to make this work. Let's see if I have remote desktop on my computer. I'll bring this up so I can give you an example of some. Oh no, I hit the wrong thing. Now it's starting boot camp. I've made a horrible, horrible mistake. That's okay. We'll figure out the details as we go through. Now I found the right thing on my screen. Now, why wouldn't we use VNC? Because we're doing this from a Mac OS device. Mac OS, built into Mac OS, is remote communication, remote desktop sharing functionality using virtual network computing protocols, VNC. So why wouldn't we use that? Well, because we're connecting to a Windows computer, we have to talk the language of what we are connecting to, not using the language of what our local operating system happens to know. So that's the difference, is you have to think about what you're connecting to and be able to use that. For example, what I was trying to show on my screen is that I, on my Mac OS workstation, have the Microsoft Remote Desktop application where I can connect to remote Windows devices, connecting to those using this front end. It's Microsoft's Remote Desktop, yet it's in Mac OS. Just a fine utility to use for that. So your correct answer here is going to be the Microsoft Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP. The 48% of you that chose B were correct. That is the right answer. And I think I've explained now why it would not be VNC. It would be VNC if we were connecting to a Mac OS device. If we were connecting to a Linux device, we could use VNC very commonly to do that. 8% of you chose SSH. SSH is a console terminal command line front end that is very useful for connecting to third-party devices. But the question asked about controlling the screen of a Windows 10 workstation, and SSH does not control the screen. So that would not be the right answer either. SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol, only 1% of you chose that. You were just right. It's definitely not what you would use. That is a protocol that works behind the scenes to query infrastructure devices, services, devices, and find statistics, metrics of how they are performing, and pull those metrics and statistics back to a central workstation very commonly. That is one that does not control the screen of an operating system either. And then you have IPsec, IP security, which is a way to create an encrypted tunnel using TCP/IP, very commonly over public or unsecured networks, so that you can send information securely over a network that could be considered insecure. And that is not a way to control the screen of a device either. The only two things on here that control screens is VNC and RDP. And since we're connecting to Windows, the right answer was RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. Now, could you use VNC to connect to a Windows device? You can. There's VNC servers for Windows. There's VNC servers for Linux. There's VNC obviously built into Mac OS, and VNC servers that you could put on many other operating systems as well. But the question was, which of the following would be the best choice for this task? The best. And this is a very common theme, a very common way for CompTIA to ask questions of you on the exam, where they will give you multiple answers that could technically be correct. This is a good example of that. RDP technically could be correct. VNC could technically be correct. But we're connecting to Windows 10, a Windows 10 workstation. It's already built into Windows 10. So the best choice for this task would be using Remote Desktop Protocol. That is it. It's not a trick question. It's only tricky in your mind if you don't know the topic. If you know the topic, this is not tricky at all. This is very straightforward. Oh, connecting Windows 10, we need RDP. Done. We're off to the next thing. So knowing this content is very useful. The Remote Desktop Protocol client absolutely gives you control of the screen. So yeah, that's what you would use for this. That is very common to run into those things. RDP is exactly what you would use to control the screen. Very useful to have that. If you're not familiar with doing a remote desktop, have somebody set up a remote desktop service on their machine and connect to it with your remote desktop client. A lot of fun to be able to do that. Most people in the help desk don't leave their desk. They simply RDP and control someone's desktop from there. It's an easy way to do it. Let's do another question. Got more here. The next question on our list is kind of an interesting one. It asks, which of the following would be associated with something you know? Is that a pin? Is it GPS coordinates? Is it a signature? Is it a fingerprint? Or is it a smart card? Which of the following would be associated with something you know? Is it a pin, GPS coordinates, signature, fingerprint, or smart card? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answers. See if you happen to know what this happens to be. And again, no comments, no questions in the chat room. Don't mess around with those. You don't want to be in that position of putting the answer in there, having those details. You'll be able to see all of this. This is a Network Plus question. Some of you are saying, wait, this is an A+ question. No, this is a Security Plus question. This is absolutely in the Network Plus exam objectives as well. So make sure you're familiar with these and be able to break those down. Becomes very useful to have that functionality. Which of the following would be associated with something you know? Have those there. There is about an 11% overlap between the Network Plus and the Security Plus exam. So 11% of the exam content you learn in Network Plus will show up on Security Plus. So for those of you that are making that jump and going from one place to another, you're going from Network Plus to Security Plus, you're going to find about 11% of the exam objectives are duplicated. There's a little bit more of a security twist to them on the Security Plus, but it's basically the same exam objectives. I know 11% is very specific because I counted them. I count a list of all of the exam objectives because I do this, and I list out, know exactly the number of exam objectives on every single exam and which ones have changed between exams, which ones were dropped, which ones were added, and which ones are different between different exams. I did all the hard work for you, so you would know exactly what that number happened to be. That's where that came from. Kind of crazy. That's what I do. It's an interesting world I live in, and you guys are just along for the ride. Let's see how you did with this one. Whoops, forgot to do my refresh. Let's do that. And we have which of the following would be associated with something you know. Let's see how you did. 94% of you think it's a pin, a P-I-N, not a P-E-N, a P-I-N. A P-E-N would not be something you know. The thing about something you know is referring to a multi-factor authentication and having that there. Multi-factor authentication you will absolutely be familiar with if you are not already. As you go through your career, you'll be using all kinds of different two-factor and multi-factor authentication to have it there. Things that you know are things that are in your brain that only you would know it because it's in one of those synapses that are firing whenever you have to put them in, like a password. A password is something you know. Hopefully it's not written down somewhere so that it's something you have. That would not be a good password. It's something that's in your brain that no one would have there. A personal identification number. That is a very common thing of something you know. That's our multi-factor authentication when we show up to get money out of an ATM. We have a card with us, something we have. We put the card in, and then we type in our personal identification number, something we know. So getting money out of an ATM is two-factor authentication. Sometimes it's more than that, but for most of us, it's two-factor authentication to have that there. And I guess to some degree, I think we've all come to the realization now that putting a pattern into our phone is really something we know. We have to know the series of the pattern that is in your mobile phone to be able to open it if you're using a pattern. Those are folks that are using an Android. iOS doesn't use patterns to do that. But you've got at least the option there to choose that if you're using an Android device and have all those details. So something you know, it's in your brain. Nobody else could possibly know that. A personal identification number is absolutely something you know. GPS coordinates, well, the global positioning system, if you're standing somewhere and there's GPS coordinates, that's somewhere you are. That is not something you know. In fact, if somebody's standing next to you, they also know your GPS coordinates. So it would definitely not be something you know. It's somewhere you happen to be. Signature, something you do or something you are. Nope, something you do. I think that's one of those where some of these kind of blend together. If you were going to do a very detailed Venn diagram of this, some of these do blend together a little bit, having those there. Fingerprints is something you are. That is a biometric. So it's absolutely nobody else would have your fingerprint. Ideally, that would be a bad thing. We've seen those movies, right? And then smart card, something you have, something you got with you would be a smart card. Smart card usually has some type of certificate on it proving that you are who you are, have that with you. You are the only one who has that certificate. It's on this card. I plug in the card. Therefore, you have that factor of authentication available. The one that really fits, the only one that fits the description of something you know would be answer A personal identification number. If you answered A, you got that absolutely right. So many things in this Network Plus exam. So many different security questions, networking questions, cabling questions, questioning about multi-factor authentication, topologies, troubleshooting all these things, command line options. 101 videos are in my Network Plus course, and I kept it to the details, very specific to the scope of the exam. I could not make this any smaller, and there was no reason to make it any larger. But 101 videos is a lot of content to go through. Maybe you've been able to watch most of them. Some of you watch all of them and go through them. And of course, I always recommend that you're able to go through and take notes on what you're watching. But I realize with 101 videos and over 12 hours of content and so much content that's there, you just may not have the time to go through all of them. So I created a set of notes for you that has everything in it. All of the details. It is my N10-007 course notes. This is the PDF of these course notes that is on my screen. This Network Plus version, 66 pages of this. Let's do one. Maybe I can find the one that deals with multi-factor authentication. I'm going to click that right here, and it's going to go to the page that talks about multi-factor authentication, something you know, somewhere you are, something you do, all of the text that is from my videos. And in fact, for things like VPNs, all the graphics and the displays that tell you or show you how this technology works is also in here. It's not just text. It's also a lot of detail that's in here. In fact, if you're studying and trying to figure out what are all these different connections, what are all these different interfaces I go through, they're all there as well. So it's a nice way to have everything in one place. I have both this digital version. There's also a physical version of it, so you can get the actual physical printed dead tree version of it. It's the same information. It's just printed in a book form that you can take with you. If you get the printed, or what I call the physical edition, you can take this with you. I'll send it to you, but you also get the digital edition for free. So it's another thing that's thrown in there. It costs a little bit more for the physical, so that may help as well. If you want to see both the digital and physical versions and see what that's all about, you can find it at our website, professormester.com/NPCN for the Network Plus course notes. Have a look. It's a great way to also support the site and what we're doing. Every penny goes back into keeping this crazy machine running. So feel free to have a look, professormester.com/NPCN Network Plus course notes, or click the links at the top of the page. Let's do some more multiple choice questions. I have another one for you. And the next question asks, which of the following would be the best way to identify open services on a remote server? Which of the following would be the best way to identify open services on a remote server? Would that be a toner probe? Would it be a port scanner? Would it be a protocol analyzer? Would it be an OTDR? Or would it be a wireless analyzer? Which of the following would be the best way to identify open services on a remote server? Is it a toner probe, a port scanner, a protocol analyzer, an OTDR, or a wireless analyzer? If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormester.com/QA and lock that in. So those of you in the chat room that went to the website, you've seen the notes that are there. You're asking if you should buy the bundle. You buy the bundle if you need what's in the bundle. The bundle comes with downloadable versions of my videos, downloadable MP3 files that you can put on your mobile device. My exam hacks ebook is there that you can only get with the entire bundle, with the Success Bundle. It is not sold separately, so that's one of those. You've got also questions. If you wanted, in the second hour, I'm going to take questions from you. If you want priority access where your question is always answered in the after show, then you also have access to that by getting the bundle. So there's some exclusivity to the bundle, but you should buy the thing that works best for what you need at the moment. Have a look at that on the website. We're going to talk about finding the best way to identify open services on a remote server. I used to do a lot of this. So this is one that hits pretty close to home for this one. Lock in your answer, get that there. We're going to go to this in just a moment and have all of those. This is one where when you start doing this and needing a way to identify open services on a remote server, this is going to be incredibly important for you to become very proficient with and being able to work through these things. Let's see. In what situations would I be looking for open services? Well, I'll tell you all about that in just a moment. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following would be the best way to identify open services on a remote server? Would it be a toner probe, a port scanner, a protocol analyzer, an OTDR, or a wireless analyzer? 76% of you say I'd use a port scanner, but 19% of you say a protocol analyzer is the best tool to use. 4% said an OTDR, 2% said a wireless analyzer, and 0% said a toner probe. There are so many reasons why you may need to identify services on a remote device. You may be performing a vulnerability scan, and you want to know what services that particular device services. You may want to know, is that device, are there ports available and open that device we weren't aware of? Maybe you're setting up a firewall rule and you want to see what port number a particular service is running on. Yeah, they told you the web server is on 443. As it turns out, the web server is on 4443. So you never know what you're going to run into. And that's a great way to validate and see what's there. Port scanners like Nmap are a great way to do this. I wrote an entire book on Nmap. So this is one I went through every single Nmap scan type, captured all of the packets that it was doing, and then annotated the exact protocol decode for every single Nmap scan and why they are all different. So it was a lot of scanning and a lot of packet captures to be able to do that. And so there's also ways, once you get that data, that you can visually see it. This comes with this as well in my port view. And it's a great way if you ever want to find a device that may be running a service that they didn't tell you they were running a service on it. This would be a great way to do it as well, to have all of this. The book that I wrote was called Secrets to Network Cartography, a comprehensive guide to Nmap. It's no longer published, unfortunately. So sad. It's just not there anymore. It's not up to date. You would use Nmap, ZenMap. There's one called the Angry IP Scanner. It's very popular. Lots of port scanners out there to do this. So that is your best choice to have this here. If you did answer B, port scanner, got that one absolutely right. Now, why wouldn't the protocol analyzer be the right question? 19% of you said, yes, protocol analyzer, that's what you would use. And you could use that if somebody happened to be communicating to that open service on that remote device and you happen to capture those packets. That's a lot of ifs. So you have to be first running the protocol analyzer and capturing packets. You have to be scanning or capturing packets to that device. And at the same time, somebody has to be accessing those open services. So all three of those have to be in place to be able to use a protocol analyzer to do that. And then, of course, you have to look through the decode to be able to find it. It is possible to do that, but it is not the easiest or best way to do this, because Nmap, you simply tell Nmap, hey, go scan that IP address, and it goes away for a minute or two, and it comes back and just creates for you an entire page that says, oh, I scanned that device. It's running TCP port 23 is open, which I think is Telnet. It says it's running TCP port 53 is open, which is probably some type of DNS type communication. HTTP service is running on that on port 80. Port 139 is open. Port 445 is open. Port 5000 is open. Port 8200 is open. That's a real scan, by the way, to one of my devices that I think was at the time was a cable modem is what I was using at the time. All those things were open on this device. And I thought, wow, that's something. While I was writing my book, I ran some types of Nmap scans to my cable modem router, and it caused my router to reboot every time I would run a certain kind of scan. And it wasn't anything crazy or hitting it hard or maxing out bandwidth. It was just a particular type of scan hit a bug with the router software, and it caused a definite problem for that router because it would reboot. Port scanner, a great way to do this, but as I tell everyone, please do not scan devices that are not yours. Please do not scan networks that are not yours. You can get in big trouble. And I have a whole story about working as a director of voice and data networking for a company and firing someone who brought down the entire phone switch because they ran a scan. That was a bad day for a lot of people. So don't do port scans. Be very careful. You can break things. So that's my definitely telling you to go out and be very safe with these. Don't run a port scan unless you have permission to do it. It's just a bad day for everybody. But that is the right answer. Port scanner, 76% got absolutely right. That's why you wouldn't use a protocol analyzer. What about an OTDR, an optical time domain reflectometer? Very common to use if you need to look at the physical functionality of a fiber. That's the optical part of the time domain reflectometer. If you use a copper, then it's just a TDR, where you're looking for faults on the wire. You're looking to understand crosstalk values. You're looking to understand how much loss you're getting across the wire. That's what you would use an OTDR or TDR for. Wireless analyzer, commonly used to analyze the wireless communication, especially the frequencies that are being used on the wireless network. That won't tell you what open services are on a device. And a toner probe is used. It's really two things. It's a toner and then a separate probe that is used to listen to the tone that is being put on a wire so that you can find both ends of the wire. So toner probe, nobody chose that one, but that's obviously not going to be a device that finds open services on a remote server unless somehow it responds to an electronic tone being sent, an analog tone being sent across the wire, and have all of those things. That is the right answer. Port scanner. You guys were absolutely right. That is the right one. Let's do another question, shall we? I'm going to speed things through here. Let's get to the next one. Here's one that might throw you if you're not familiar with the DNS side of things. The next question on our list asks, which DNS record would be the best choice for managing SPF information? Would that be SRV, MX, TXT, A, or PTR? Which DNS record would be the best choice for managing SPF information? Would that be SRV, MX, TXT, A, or PTR? That sounds like a crazy question. And if you're not familiar with how all of these things work with DNS, then that is a crazy question. If you think you know the answer to what this is, please know answering in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Is there a way to learn about DNS? There's some great DNS books out there. The folks at, which DNS book do I have? It's the one with like the kiwi on it or something, wasn't it? It's one of those books. That was a good DNS book. But if you just want to load up DNS, there's DNS services for any operating system these days. Load it up and create your own domain. See if you can query that domain. Use something like Dig or NSLookup to be able to query it to see the different DNS record types, or query a DNS server that you know and query interesting things that are on that server is a great way to do it. See if you happen to know what those differences are. There's an entire section of the Network Plus exam that expects you to know about these DNS types. So make sure you're familiar with those DNS records and how they are used to make all of that happen. Yeah, I'm not really talking about sunscreen. SPF here, not referring to the sunscreen qualifier that tells you how well it's going to block the UV rays. Although it would be nice if DNS did that. I'm not sure why we missed the opportunity there. We could have had two birds with one stone kind of situation. Which DNS server would be the best choice for managing SPF information? Let's figure it out and see what those options are. We're going to break through what all these happen to be. Of course, I forgot to refresh this. They're working on that bug. They'll get it done shortly. Don't worry. And let's see how we did. Well, we're just not sure. We're all over the place on this one. For those of you you're now banned, but you were complaining there weren't any hard questions, here you are. Finally, we got the answers for you. We got the hard questions for you. 35% of you say it's TXT. 21% of you say it's MX. 19% of you say it's a PTR, almost a tie with the 17% that said it's an SRV, and only 8% of you say it's a record. A. It's the Canadian DNS record, or the A record. Now, managing SPF, I guess we sort of have to start there with managing SPF information and what it happens to be. The challenge with SPF is an email term. It's used to determine if the person sending the email is legitimate. It's called a Sender Policy Framework record. It helps to prevent mail spoofing. This is very useful to have these days because we need to stop all of these crazy email spoofs that come through that say, I sent you an email, but it really wasn't me. Somebody else sent the email and put my name on it. So one of the ways that you can check is when someone receives this email, they can check the Sender Policy Framework to see if that mail did actually come from a host that was authorized to send it to begin with. This works in conjunction with the DKIM, the Domain Keys Identified Mail, which effectively digitally signs these messages that are going out. The email servers make sure they check your public key that's available on your mail server. Both of these are kept on a DNS server because these are pieces of text that you would keep on the mail server. And so it just makes sense that it would be in a text record. This is publicly available, ready to read information. And in fact, if you were to look at the configuration on a DNS server, here are DNS records for SPF and the DKIM on, is this on my server? This might be the old one, or it might be the existing. Now I'm looking at it. This may be the existing mail configuration that is on my server, which you can get from my DNS server. This is not private information. It's not secret information. It's on my DNS server. And other email servers grab this information and bring it back and have it there. So that's another thing you can do, is have all of that available. Very useful to have that functionality, but you would put it in a text record to have all of those things there. Text records is where those would be. I know we use SPF for other things too, like small form factor pluggable, not have capabilities and access to those either. Text record is where you would put those. That is the best answer in this particular case. 21% of you said an MX record. And if you were thinking SPF, you knew SPF had something to do with mail, you may think that you would put it in MX, but MX is only for mail exchange information to point to where my mail server happens to be. That's what you would do with an MX record. You don't have a lot of MX records. You don't mess around with your MX records. Don't touch your MX records. Once you have them working, you're good. Don't do that. MX is an important record, and that's not where you would put SPF information. The next one on the list, 19% said PTR, a pointer record. So if you were going to have a different name for a particular server, be able to point to a different device in your DNS, because we might have one name for a service, but we might want to call it different things. Pointer record and an A record work together to make that happen. The A record is your address record. Work together to make those things happen. And then you have the SRV record, or the service record. That is used by third-party services. A very common use of this on most people's network is to point to where the Active Directory server happens to be. SRV is very commonly used for that. In fact, if you're on a network, I would go into company networks all the time. It was brand new to me. I was walking in and I had a next generation firewall with me, and I needed that next generation firewall to talk to the Active Directory server. And I would ask the security people, what's the IP addresses of your Active Directory servers? And they'd say, I don't know. We're not the network guys. We're the security guys. So I had in my list of great notes what NS lookup commands you could run to be able to have the DNS provide you with the SRV records, which would have inside of them the IP addresses and names of the domain servers. So very useful to have that. Very nice to have that functionality, but that's what that would be for SRV. The only answer here, although this says the best choice for managing SPF, the only choice for managing SPF is the text record, TXT, to be able to have that there. If you're watching this video either live or on a replay for continuing education unit credit, I would be glad to send you a digitally signed email that certifies that you must have watched this, but you have to follow these instructions in pretty much specifically, not in excruciating detail, but please follow them. It helps me a lot on the backside. And of course, when I do that, I know that you watch this. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. Click the Contact Us link. Brings up a form. In that form, put your name, put your email address. Make sure the email address is right because, again, I'm emailing this to you. Then it has a subject line. And that subject line, if you could put that this is the August Network Plus study group. And then in the body of the message on a single line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, which is DNS record. DNS record, those words together. DNS record is the super secret code word of the month. And then if you want to put anything else in there, I read through every single one of these that come through. They come directly to me. So if you would like to be able to earn a continuing education unit credit, that's how you do it. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter. You don't need them. But if you're somebody who's collecting CEUs, this is how you collect them. Go to the top or the bottom of the website, click Contact Us link, fill out the form, put the super secret code word of the month, DNS record, send it to me. It takes me about a week to turn these around, but you can at least know that I will eventually get it to you. If you're short of time and you waited until the last minute and you're trying to get all these listing of all these CEUs and you need just more of these webinar category CEUs, let me know and I can turn it around a little quicker to be able to have that there. We can talk all about CEUs and renewals and why you probably would not want to collect CEUs. I'll explain that in the after show if you want to talk about why you would probably not want to do that. Let's do another question, though. And the chat room, I don't believe you put your money in high-yield CEUs because I don't know that there are any high-yield CEUs. But if there are, we can talk about that. I need a high-yield anything right now, CEU or otherwise. Let's do another question. The question asks, a network administrator is connecting two switches together with a 40 gigabit Ethernet connection. Which of the following is being used? Is that SFP, QSFP+, GBIC, QSFP, or SFP+? A network administrator is connecting two switches together with a 40 gigabit Ethernet connection. Which of the following is being used? Is it SFP, QSFP+, GBIC, QSFP, or SFP+. If you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. You'll be able to answer this one. And if you don't know, yes, take a guess. I'll fill you in on a little tip from my Exam Hacks ebook. Here is your free tip. You don't even have the book, and I'll give it to you. On your exam, before you hit the submit button, make sure every single question has an answer. You don't get penalized they don't take points away from you if you get a question wrong. You get questions available to you, or you get points available to you when you get a question right. So taking a guess doesn't cost you anything. Taking a guess can only earn you points if you happen to guess right. So that's pretty important. Make sure that when you take your exam, never hit the submit button to submit the exam and leave questions blank. Always put something in. You might end up getting access to that. My Exam Hacks ebook is available for people that have purchased my Success Bundle. So if you have my Success Bundle, it's there for you to download right now. It's not sold separately. It's exclusive to the Success Bundle. It's right there and available, though, for you to be able to get your hands on that. That is one. You can go back on the questions. You can hop to any question at any time on CompTIA exams. It's not that way for other manufacturers' exams, but CompTIA, at least at this point, still allows you to jump from the first question to the last question or any question in between at any time on the exam, which is kind of nice. I guess that was another tip from my book. So be able to use that. You might want to skip over things. You might want to skip over the performance-based questions at the beginning, do all the multiple choice questions, and then come back to the performance-based questions. All right, so you got two of my exam hacks. That was them. I gave you a little bit of detail. That's nothing secret there, right? I just put them all in one book. That's the difference. So let's answer this one. We're going to do a question here. Yeah, other exams, I don't know how specifically they operate. So another manufacturer's exams like Cisco, VMware, Microsoft, they have a completely different way that they do their testing. So this is only for CompTIA exams that I'm referring to. Let's answer this one. A network administrator is connecting two switches together with 40 gigabit Ethernet connection. Which of the following is being used? An SFP, a QSFP+, a GBIC, a QSFP, or an SFP+. All real things. None of them quite sure exactly what we would use. Quite a little bit of a challenge. The real key here is you have to know what would you use on a 40 gigabit Ethernet connection, which are real things, and we would use a very specific type of transceiver to support that kind of connection. The type of transceiver that we would use, the type is a QSFP, which is a quad small form factor pluggable. And it would be one that has 4 channels in it on a single set of fibers going back and forth. And the one that has those 4 channels is a QSFP plus, which is effectively a 4-channel SFP plus, quad SFP plus, what that is for. And so you've got 4 10 gig a second channels going over it in a single transceiver. Look at all of the fiber and connectivity you're saving by putting that 40 gigabit connection over a single pair of fiber going over that link. Very, very efficient to have that. And it's able to do it because it's bidirectional. It's a BiDi. Bidirectional, whenever you deal with QSFP and QSFP+, those are bidirectional. So we have quite a bit that you have choices over. I have an entire video that talks about all of the different network transceivers, when you would use them, what they're there for. I have pictures of those. They're here in my studio. This picture I took right there in the studio for the QSFP that I have here. Which one is this? I don't even know. I have to go look again at which model that is. That's there. But I put them side to side, so at least you'd be able to see the differences. The form factors are a little bit different between them, and they're used for different things. It's in section 2.1. It's a video called Network Transceivers. So QSFP Plus is what we were looking for. 35% of you chose that one. That is the right answer, QSFP Plus. That's the one you were looking for to have that there. Hopefully that's giving you an idea. Others like a GBIC, certainly running the older gigabit technology. You probably aren't using GBICs in your modern devices any longer. Probably have an old switch somewhere still using some GBICs. And if you're swapping in and out fiber or copper connectivity, it's nice to have the flexibility for being able to use these. SFP, for your 10 gig connections or 1 gig plus connections, 10 gig up to 10 gig, and then QSFP for the BiDi, being able to do higher speeds up to 40 gig a second over a single pair. That is the correct answer, QSFP plus. Have a look at those. I think that might help you. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to fit one more question in there. What do you think? I think we should do that. We're going to go into overtime on the study group. We'll fit one more in before we have to stop anywhere. Next question asks, a network diagram shows a WAN interface connecting to serial port 0 on slot 1. Which of these would be the best description of this diagram? Is it an inventory database, a logical diagram, patch panel documentation, physical map, or network baseline? All 5 real things we have to know the difference of. A network diagram shows a WAN interface connecting to serial port 0 on slot 1. Which of these would be the best description of this diagram? Is it an inventory database, a logical diagram? Is it patch panel documentation? Is it a physical map? Is it network baseline? One of those. If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professorbesser.com/QA and lock in your answer and have this here. Folks in the chat room talking about the online testing, what you would find there. Yes. They're very specific. You can't just call them up and say, yep, give me the test. You've got to have a very specific setup for your room. In fact, you can't even have multiple monitors. You would not be able to take the test in the studio. Too many monitors. You have one monitor turned on, plugged in. In fact, not only turned off, has to be unplugged. They have to physically disconnect it from your computer to be able to use it. You would not be able to use it in this particular studio at all. I'd have to take all the monitors out. Use one monitor. Has to be in a room, definitely with everything closed in. That type of thing. Yeah, they're very specific. They make a very secure room setup, and they have very specific things they have to follow to be able to do that. And so they might ask you to do some weird things. You can't talk to yourself during the exam. Can't put your hand over your mouth. Can't use headphones most of the time. Sometimes they will allow you, but they have to allow you to use them. By default, you cannot. Very, very specific. And of course, they're always watching you. They got the video always going. They're always listening in. If anybody walks in the room, they'll fail you immediately. Yeah, there's no physical paper. You have to do all of your notes online. And they do have notes online. You have to have a webcam. You have to have some type of camera so they can watch you for those. Yeah, very, very specific. So make sure you're prepared for that if you're planning to take your test at home. Let's get the answer on this one. A network diagram shows a WAN interface connecting to serial port 0 and slot 1. Which of these would be the best description of this diagram? 40% say it's a logical diagram. 30% say it's a physical map. 21% say it's a patch panel documentation. 9% said it's a network baseline. And 0% said it is an inventory database. I did not follow where I thought it would go. We're very specifically asking and talking about an interface on a router, a WAN interface connecting to a serial port 0 on slot 1, a very specific interface on that wide area network device. That's a very specific description of a physical configuration. You are talking about physically a wire is plugging into this interface, and physically that wire is going off to whatever it is, a CSU, DSU, or going off to a smart jack that's on the wall. You're physically understanding where the wires are going between point A and point B. It can be a physical diagram like this one that shows where things are. It might even say where they are in a rack. You might have a picture of a rack, and it would show you it's here on this rack, on this row, in this particular column of racks. It might be a physical network diagram that's more like this, that shows physically an IP address of this laptop plugs into a Ethernet interface 02. This switch interface 01 plugs into the router on gig 00. So you can get very specific physical interface diagrams. Logical diagrams would be a lot like this, that are very broad, that are maybe describing a location. Tallahassee talks to Miami. Miami talks to Tueg. Kissimmee talks to Tallahassee, all through the corporate MPLS cloud. We don't see any interfaces there. We don't know physically even the addresses where these devices are located, certainly not the slots and the port numbers that these things are connected to. It's a very broad understanding of how things are connected. Those are the logical network maps. So we were looking more of a physical connection. In fact, if you chose D, physical map, 30% of you got that one absolutely right. And we've described why it's not a logical diagram, because we were talking about very specific serial ports and slots that are in a device, so it would not be logical either. It would not be patch panel documentation. That's not a patch panel. Serial port 0 and slot 1 is not referring to a patch panel location, so that would not be it either. Network baseline. A baseline is commonly giving us metrics and statistics about how the performance of a network is performing over time, so it would not be a network baseline either. And not many people chose inventory database. There's nothing here that describes the inventory of a particular device. We're really talking about where we would connect a WAN interface. Would not be an inventory either. The best option here, the best description of this diagram would be indeed answer D, a physical map. That's exactly where the answer would be. If you answered that, got it absolutely correct. Well done. Well, can you believe we went through an hour of Q&A already? That flew by. All the questions we did today came directly from the exam objectives. You can find them at professormesser.com/objectives. All of those objectives are free to download. It's free. Go download them at professormesser.com/objectives. There's a link you'd click on to go over to the CompTIA website, or go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It'll take you right there. You'll be able to get your hands on those. They are a fantastic resource. You should have them before you start your studies, and you should use them as a final checklist before you schedule your exam. Very useful. And they are the guide that I use to create my entire video course. So very useful there to have all the details. I do one of these study groups every month. The next Network Plus study group will be in September on the 16th. Of course, the week before that, on the 8th and the 10th, are my A Plus study groups. On the 23rd of September is a Security Plus study group, and we still have a Security Plus study group for this month. So there is an August Security Plus study group. You can always find out when the next live event is going to be by going to our calendar. You can click the calendar link at the top of the Professor Messer website, or go to professormesser.com/calendar and find out when the next one is going to be. Well, we've done an hour, but that doesn't mean we're done. Stick around for the after show. Instead of me asking you questions, you will ask me questions. We'll take questions from the chat room. I'll open up the phone lines. We'll do all of that. Don't forget about the success bundles available at professormesser.com/netsuccess. My course notes are there as well. You can follow us on the YouTube for all of our training videos. We have some newer videos that we put out recently about how to get a job in IT with no experience. Should you take the new version of the Security Plus exam that is coming out shortly, or should you wait? I answer all those questions with the new videos that are on my channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget about the weekly pop quiz question for Network Plus. You can find on Twitter or Instagram by going to professormesser.com/Twitter or professormesser.com/Instagram. And you can support us on Amazon by going to professormesser.com/Amazon. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. There's so many things we have to do in the after show. We're looking forward to your questions. But we appreciate you being here for this first hour. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Let's now shift gears and get the phone lines open, and then I'll answer some of the questions that are in the chat room about the success bundles. The real-world Q&A and the success bundles are my practice exam books. So if you're probably looking at a Security Plus or an A Plus success bundle, and I have 3 practice exams, which I think are the best practice exams in the world for many reasons. I don't have any of those yet for Network Plus, so that's why I didn't talk about them today. Let's get called in to the phone lines, and then I will tell you how you can participate in all of this. So I'll start up my Skype. Let's get my calling in here. There we go. Stand by, everyone. I don't have anyone here, so this is just me doing this. So I always do this every time I type in my number.
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that. I'll put in that number.
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thank you. How nice of you. What a nice lady. And now that she has connected me to my cloud-based call-in system. You can connect to my cloud-based call-in system. It's a toll-free number in the U.S., 855-785-RJ45, west of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you are outside of the continental United States, you can still call in, but you'll want to use Skype, which allows you to call these toll-free numbers for free. The Skype free number, you put a +1 at the beginning, +1 855-785-7545 will also connect you to this. You'll be able to ask questions in here as well. While we're waiting on those callers to get queued up, some folks in the chat room were asking, when is the next Security Plus exam coming out? The 601 will be out in October. So as you're watching this, a couple months from now, there will be a new Security Plus exam. The existing Security Plus exam, though, will still be around through July of 2021. So in the video I mentioned on my YouTube channel is why you should not wait to take the SY0601. I highly recommend you take and pass the SY0501, and I explain in that video why I think that way. And then you tell me whether I'm right or wrong when I go through that. Other questions in the chat room. Am I going to create the new Security Plus playlist soon? Well, as soon as that course is has something to put into a playlist, as I mentioned, we still got months before that exam is available. And you'll start to see, and this is kind of a common thing with these, it takes a long time to create the content for books, for videos, for Q&A. When an exam is released, very rarely is there a lot of study materials available. It takes months to create those things. Another reason why I highly recommend that you not take the SY0601 on this. So that was there. Was the scan I said broke a network some kind of vulnerability scan or a simple port scan? It was a port scan, but it was a specific kind of port scan that did some vulnerability scanning. It was a type of scanner that is no longer available. It was made by McAfee at the time. This is around 1999, 2000 timeframe. So 20 years ago when this happened. It still applies today, by the way. The danger of this still applies. But the issue was that this particular scanner was one that was very aggressive at how it went after. It was a very simple front end. It was a Windows front end. You clicked a button, but it was very aggressive at how it went after devices. And this was someone who was in as a contractor in a call center. They ran this scan, and it scanned the IP address of the phone switch for a 1,500-seat call center. This is a significant device on the network that has a 100% uptime requirement, and he scanned the device and it crashed. It rebooted the entire phone switch. And when a phone switch in a call center, and this was a third-party call center, so this was a call center that was charging other people to take their calls, even worse, the entire phone switch disappears. I, at the time, was the director of voice and data networking. The phone switch was my responsibility. Me. There was nobody above me who that it was their responsibility. It was my responsibility, and the phone switch disappeared. Was gone. No phone call. All the phone calls that were there got dropped. Everybody sitting at their chairs couldn't take phone calls. No phone calls were coming in. The entire phone switch was rebooting. This never happens. And so this started an entire world of things happening. There was triage to make sure the phone was back up and running. It took a while to reboot, but it got back up and running, and suddenly we were taking calls again, and we had no idea what went on. We had to check the logs of the phone switch to figure out what was happening. It rebooted. What do you mean it rebooted? Get on the phone with AT&T, find out what we were doing, why this wasn't working right. In the meantime, we started trying to piece together what we had from the logs, which pointed us back to an IP address, which pointed back to a particular workstation. That was some guy's workstation who was there in another part of the company doing server administration that had nothing to do with the phone switch. And there was nothing on his machine that would have done this. It was just a normal Windows machine. It was our machine. It was just at his desk. it took us looking into the registry to find the sections of the registry that had not undeleted the program from McAfee, Network Associates at the time. I guess it was Network Associates at the time. The product that caused all of this, we found remnants of that in the registry. Now, what this poor person didn't know is I had just started that position as previously being a systems engineer for Network Associates. I was certified in this program that he happened to use to do this and was extremely knowledgeable of what was in the registry and how it operated. And so immediately when we saw that, we knew what had happened. And we brought him into a room and put the light over his head and said, okay, did you do it? He goes, well, of course not. Of course I didn't do it. And then, yeah, he totally eventually said, yes, I did it. And we got his stuff and walked him out. That he was not being malicious. He was just running some scans. Let's see what this will find on this network. We don't know if really he was being malicious. We don't know any other reason why you would run a scan on the network if not to find something that you would then do with it. I don't know. We never got to that point because he effectively caused thousands of dollars of an outage on this network, along with our reputation. We had to communicate back to all our customers. It was an enormous, enormous thing. But it brings me back to the point, do not scan a network that is not yours, that you do not have permission to scan it. Be very careful when you do a scan that you know what you're doing, because that could absolutely bring devices down. And as I mentioned, even well after that, as I was writing my Nmap book, and even today, there are times when I will run an Nmap scan and a device will reboot. So you do have to be very, very careful with those things. I don't know what happened to him. I don't even remember his name. I barely remember what he looked like. This was in South Florida. And if you're watching, we remember. Good to see you. Hope things have gone well for you. I bet you haven't run any scans again. Or maybe he got really, really good at running scans, and that's all he does now. Maybe he's like the best port scanner ever because of that. You know, you can turn these things around. Anytime you think something really went bad with your career, it almost always turns out to be something good. It's just the way you use it, I guess. We'll have to see. I don't know. Send me an email, person who did this, and we'll laugh about fun times. Because nobody got sent to jail. FBI wasn't involved. There wasn't anything like that. We just said, grab your stuff. You're not coming back. We're good. Thanks. So you never know. He might be the best Nmapper you've ever seen now. Let's now go to the phone lines, the 925 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello. How's it going?
Thanks for calling. It's going well here. What can we do for you?
Awesome. I've got a whole myriad of questions, so I'll try and keep them punchy and short. The guy that you're talking about that ran the scan and caused the outage, if he'd have been honest when you were interrogating him about it, if he'd have said, yeah, I did it and I messed up, would he have kept his job?
No, we would not have kept his job. We were just wanting to get him to admit to it so that we would at least for sure know that it was him on his workstation running that. I wish I could even remember the name of the scanning program, which I don't at the time. It will come back to me eventually. We just wanted to be sure we had the right person and that we weren't going after the wrong person. It wasn't like we were in there and it was, we weren't there with sticks, in our hands like, look here, buddy, you better tell us. It's bad news for you. No, it was more of a situation where let's make sure we got the right guy.
And career-wise, if you do make mistakes like that, is honesty the best policy, or should you try and cover yourself? Or?
Well, I don't know what happened with him. Obviously, I'm certain he learned a lesson. Of course, we had to tell the company he worked for that this is what happened and he caused it, and we will not be hiring from your company any longer. So it affected them financially. So I don't know what happened after that. I kind of don't have the end of the story. I just kind of have the fun part. I don't have the very difficult, dark part where he took up drinking and it all went down a bad place and he had to go for. I don't know what happened, or it might have been great. Maybe he turned it around. It turned out to be a positive, but I just don't have the end of that story.
Moving away from the dark imagery that we stumbled into there.
Well done.
Are you gaming at the moment? Have you got time? Have you been getting on the Xbox much? Or
Holy smokes. It has been unplugged. You know, here I live in Florida. It's the summer in Florida. There's enormous thunderstorms that come through every afternoon. And I unplugged it a few weeks ago, and it has not been plugged in since then because I have, thanks to CompTIA, they announced their new Security Plus exam objectives, and now I have a huge project I need to accomplish in the next number of months. But my plan is to go back to it. I am still watching the YouTube videos of the people playing the latest version of the games that I would like to play and telling me why it's so awesome, but I know I'm not going to be able to get to it until probably the holiday season.
So with online gaming, like specifically multiplayer gaming, we had a discussion before and said that, Call of Duty and sort of fast-paced games like that are for the youngsters just because their reflexes outclass us. If you fiddle with your DNS settings and the sort of DHCP servers and stuff, does that make a difference, or is that just sort of a waste of time?
It's pretty much a waste of time. There's very little you're going to be able to optimize on a PC gaming system or an Xbox or PlayStation type system to be able to make it work faster than what it is working now. Almost always your slowdown point is on the internet side of things. Anyway, it's never your local network. You're usually connected to a 100 megabit or a gigabit network, and it's always going out to an internet connection that is less than 100 megabit or somewhere just over 100 megabit. That's really the slowdown, is out there in the cloud in the rest of the world. It's not something that's in our local network. Tweaking the TCP windowing parameters of your PC are not going to help you much. The key is really just the defaults are really good with what they do. I've even seen, of course, there's some motherboards and some adapters you can get for Ethernet that tout themselves as being faster Ethernet transceivers or Ethernet adapters that offload some of the work that the CPU would normally be doing. That's not entirely false. Those adapters do run faster and more efficiently because they have their own processors and run a little bit faster and are designed to run a little bit faster. But at the end of it, are you seeing a difference on your local network going out to the Call of Duty servers or the things that are running out there in the rest of the world? No, you're not seeing any benefit by running it that way. If you were on a local network and you were in somebody who was an e-gamer and you did this within an arena type environment where all the machines were in the same room, perhaps there would be some advantages. And of course, at that point, you need every advantage you can get, but certainly not for our casual gaming we do with our consoles and PCs over the internet.
Worldwide, it's not realistic. Thank you. Careers-wise, moving back to sort of more serious stuff, is there anything that you yourself wish you'd started learning sooner? So I'm fairly new to IT, and I very much get the impression that you're never going to stop studying. You're always going to have to be studying something because of the pace of tech and things moving along. Is there anything that you wish you'd started studying sooner to give you that long-term advantage? Does that make sense? It's sort of like a code, or example, or or anything like that, is it?
It's sort of one of these situations where for me, it seemed like everything came together at the right time for what I was doing. And I think that's just because that's what it does. That's how your normal career works, is that suddenly these new technologies come along and you get very interested in it. When I started in IT, there was no internet. So suddenly the internet came along. None of us knew what it was about. None of us, when I started, there was no IP networking that was part of a corporate infrastructure. So I had to learn IP as part of being a server and network administrator. I had to learn about the internet and the way it operated. What's a DNS server? How does that work? What is a web server? How does that work? Those things you sort of learn on the job as you go. I could not have learned them any faster than I learned them because they were just there whenever I started learning them. The things that I always worry about is if I'm going to miss something so bad that it becomes a very well-known technology and I'm stuck in the dark ages. I used to see organizations, for example, that had a huge group of COBOL programmers in the back room because it was a big multi-billion-dollar corporation that had a huge investment in IBM mainframes and a huge investment in COBOL applications, and they still had people writing these as I was installing Windows systems. So it's one of those situations where if you sit on this technology too long, there's kind of a curve. Suddenly you're very valuable because very few people know how to do it. And then there's an enormous crashing sound as suddenly they finally phase out the technology that you were never, ever coming off of. So I've always tried to, whenever I see the newest stuff come out, I always try to learn something about it. The latest one that I think almost everybody needs to get their arms around quickly is the cloud computing technologies. You're going to touch them in some way, either from a security side, a networking side, or server implementation side, or from the user side, being able to use those technologies, not just the way the cloud operates, but how you would orchestrate it and automate it, how the server administrators are able to create containers and be able to deploy using those containers. That's an incredibly exciting technology. It's becoming very, very popular, and we're all going to have to get in there eventually and learn a lot more about it. Those are probably the things that we don't want to miss that everybody's working on now. And then, of course, 6 months from now, it's going to be something new anyway.
Is quantum computing something to be considering, or is that just out of the ballpark at the moment?
There are some places where that's useful. It's still very, very niche. Quantum computing is a very, very niche set of technologies that is sort of on the higher end. I want to say it's more of the higher end college educational research side, but I probably more so on the government super secret guys with dark hats running around keeping everything quiet side. There's probably stuff going on that side we just don't know about.
And just finally, go really back to basics. I struggle so much with like binary and hexadecimal stuff. Is there anywhere where they have literally like binary for kids or something like that makes it more digestible? I get it in premise, but I don't. Yeah.
Hexadecimal still drives me crazy to do conversions of that. So you're definitely in the right place. It still messes me up. I'm very good at binary. I'm pretty good because I guess maybe having to do all the subnetting all the time. In the latest Network Plus, I think they took out all the conversion pieces. You used to have to know how to convert between decimal, binary, and hex. And I think they took that out of the 007. But if you go back to my 006 videos, which I keep all my videos on YouTube, so I don't get rid of them. There are videos there that go through how to do conversions of hex, of binary, and back and forth into decimal, and I have little charts that I go along with it, and I just use charts to do the referencing, and you can do it in seconds.
The 60-second conversion one, and like I say, it makes sense to me when I watch it, and then when I go away and try and do it, it just doesn't happen.
Well, sadly, that's exactly what happens to me, and I'm the one that made the video.
That makes me feel a lot better. All right, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the session today, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the future.
Call anytime. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much. That's the one. Hexadecimal, for some reason, drives me crazy. I can't get my mind to get in that place. If you really want to get messed up, the very first mainframe computer I worked on was not one that was binary. Was it octal? I want to say it was maybe it wasn't octal. Which one was it? I'm gonna have to look. Maybe it was 6 bits per byte, and it was not octal. It was not 8 bits per byte. I think it was 6 bits per byte, or was it 10? It was something different, and I just definitely couldn't get around that. I sort of have the same problem now with hex. I'm gonna have to figure out which one that was. It was a Control Data Corporation. And caller, will be back to you in just a moment. Now I have to go down this rat hole. Control Data Corporation. It was a cyber, let's say cyber 730 was what it was. We'll go down that road. 730. Now we're going to Wikipedia stuff. Let's see if it happens to say it doesn't have any details on it. So I'm going to have to go deep, deep, deep into the internet to figure out. I think there was a cyber 640, a cyber 7. These guys were doing cyber before anybody was doing cyber. That's where these names came from, on the controlled data side. Gonna have to figure that one out. Gonna have to really search and hunt through that one to figure out what it was. There's the 730. Would love to find a manual for the Cyber 730 side. That would bring back so many interesting stories with those. The Plato subsystem was on it. Just a lot of fun with those. That was my very first, and then got into the cyber supercomputers. I think it was a 200 series was the CDC supercomputer series. Remarkable. And then there was the ETA series, ETA 10 supercomputer that I worked on that was cooled with liquid nitrogen. It ran so hot. We had a cryogenerator in the back room that would cycle through the liquid nitrogen. It would go back into the cryogenerator to be refrozen and then recycled back through the supercomputer again. Oh, those were the days. Don't know why they allowed me to be in charge of making sure nothing went wrong with that. I could only imagine if there was a liquid nitrogen leak, what would I have done? I'm sure there's probably a set of papers somewhere that would have told me. Fortunately, never happened. Let's go back to the phones, the 202 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I would have got you on the phone. I have a question.
Sure.
So I took Network Plus test multiple times, and I failed. Is there any advice you can give to me, any study advice, to help me pass the next time I take it?
Sure. There's plenty of things you can do to help yourself out. And this is a situation we all find ourselves in. I think I spoke last week about having to take a certification exam 3 times before passing it on network cabling, of all things. So we're all in these situations where we find just these topics that drive us crazy. There's a lot of information on your Pearson VUE login that you can use right now. Whenever you take an exam for CompTIA, you're taking it through a third party called Pearson VUE. CompTIA is not giving you the exam. They've contracted for Pearson VUE to do this. And it used to be when you take one of those exams, they print out a sheet of paper and they give it to you when you're done that tells you either passed or failed, and then it tells you all the topics that you got wrong in the exam. It doesn't give you the questions or the answers, but it tells you the broad topic numbers that go back to the exam objectives. So that is a great source of intelligence. That's a great source of intel. If you ever need to know where to do more studying, it may be able to provide you with that. So if you log into your Pearson VUE account, they're now all digital. You can download your exam results page and you can see exactly which exam objectives, number 4.2, number 3.7, number 1.2, and it tells you this part of the exam objective is what you got wrong, so that you can look through that and go, okay, I need to spend more time with the OSI model, or I need to spend more time with security, or I need to spend more time with troubleshooting. It will give you places where you can maybe help for the next time when you go in. That's one great resource to go with. Another thing you can do is use the exam objectives for that. You may remember from the exam which ones you had problems with, and you may be able to go back to the exam objectives and circle those particular things. Now, of course, as you've seen, every time you take the exam, it's a different set of questions. They have a big pool, and they pull a random set out of the pool, so you don't get the same exam every time. But some of the questions will start to duplicate themselves because there are only so many questions to pull from, and it is random. So I of course, if you can remember some of the topics that you did not feel comfortable with on the exam, absolutely make a note of those yourself. You obviously can't share those with anyone, but you can make a note and say, okay, I need to know more about that particular topic and that particular problem. The 4 things I always say, if you want to maximize your percentage passing on an exam, you need 4 things. You need a good book. And if you have a book already, maybe another one might be useful. You need a good set of videos, which teach you differently than a book does. And you can use mine or use someone else's. You need plenty of hands-on. So if you've not been working at the command line, running a trace route, running a ping, running an NS lookup or a dig, you need to do that on your machine and run those commands. And then lastly, plenty of Q&A. And there are some good Q&A sources out there for Network Plus. There's some bad Q&A sources out there for Network Plus. But if you go to the CompTIA subreddit and you simply ask them, I'm struggling with Network Plus, I need the best possible exam question and answer, where should I go? You'll get plenty of people offering to give you some suggestions. Those are the 4 things: book, video, hands-on, Q&A. And if you put all 4 of those things together, it's going to help you a lot when you go through the study process.
Okay. All right. I just wrote all of those things down. So I'm failing by like a few questions. Like, what do you think is going on? Am I just not doing these 4 things that you're saying that I should be doing?
You're very close. I mean, you're close to the end of that. Those 4 things I mentioned are sort of the best possible 4 things you can have. Not everybody has all 4 of these and passes the exam. Some of them, sometimes you don't have the Q&A you can't go through. So you do more of the other 3. You sort of balance them out. But you should be able at this point, having 2 exams under your belt, you should be able to point out or have a list of the things that are really causing you the biggest problem. That's where you should focus your efforts. There's probably other things you got cold at this point. But if you couldn't look at my OSI model list today at the beginning of the study group, and you couldn't very easily go through that and go, that's 1, that's 7, that's 2, that's 4. If you're not at that point, those are the types of things you need to be able to do with. Do you think most of your problems are in a particular area, or is it more of a broader scope across the entire exam?
No, I think it's a particular area. I think it's like the VLANs and the configurations. I think it's a particular area that I'm struggling on. Okay, so let's say I take the test now,
okay,
and let's say I fail. Knock on wood, I fail. How long do you think I should wait again to retake the test, to study and retake the test? Do you think I should wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks, a month?
Well, after taking the exam 2 times, after the first failure, you can take the exam immediately afterwards if you want to take a retake. After the second one, you have to wait 2 weeks. CompTIA does not allow you to take the exam any earlier than 2 weeks. So they put a governor on you immediately. And then after that, you have to wait 2 weeks after that. So now you're at the 2-week point. So if you were to fail again, which you won't, you're going to pass this next time because you're so close. But if for some reason something happened, you failed again, you would have to at least take 2 weeks to do this. My recommendation to know when you go in to take the exam is the exam objectives. You should be able to go through every exam objective, each point that's on there, and be able to explain to yourself or to someone else what that particular exam objective is about. And really have an understanding of what that particular exam objective means. And then if you don't, you should circle it because that's a topic you need to study. Once you go through the entire set of exam objectives, and we are talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of topics. So it takes a long time to go through this entire thing. But once you do that, now you've got a pretty good understanding of the foundation, and you're probably at that point ready to take the exam, and you would certainly know which topics you still need to work on before you schedule that exam again. These exams are not inexpensive. And so I never say that people should study for 3 months and take the exam. They should study until they know everything listed in the exam objectives. For some people, that's a week. For some people, that's 3 months. For people like me, it takes me 6 months to a year because I'm doing other stuff. So you find the time frame that works for you. The real determination of when you do it is based on how well you know those topics on the exam objectives.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and answering my questions. Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. You're so close. Keep working on it. It's going to be the third time's the charm. You're going to lock it in because now you have all these tools available to be able to break out where these things are coming from, what you should do with it, where you should look for tips, where you should find out where you're failing, where falling down on the exam, what things you just don't remember. That's what it is. And in some ways, you've now taken the exam a couple times. You kind of understand the cycle. You understand the process. You understand the way the questions are asked. It's one of those. I think you're eventually going to get it, and you're so close now. You just need that extra little bump, and you've passed the exam. Let's go to 917. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello. My name's Anthony, and I'm calling from New York.
Oh, Anthony from New York. What can we do for you?
So I'm studying right now for the CompTIA Network Plus. Hopefully, I haven't taken it before, but I work as an intern for a supercomputer. So I do currently working, doing some security and networking stuff with them. And the one thing that I'm having problems with on the Network Plus side is it's the WAN technology stuff. And primarily speaking, like I don't, when I was going through your learning playlist, one of the things that I didn't understand was like the just terminology like the SONET, SONET, and what like MPLS is and why is it used. And so I was kind of wondering if you could go more in depth, because I found like Googling stuff is just hasn't really been able. So I was wondering if you could like explain like 5 and give like an overarching overview of the WAN technologies and such that you were going on in your videos.
It's a good question, because I think it's one of those things that we get wrapped up with Network Plus because we're not able to touch it. We don't have these WAN technologies in our homes. It's a lot like when you take the A+ exam, there's a whole section on laser printers. And a lot of us don't have laser printers in our homes. We've never really worked with laser printers. So everything we're learning about that technology is something we've never touched before. We've never seen it ourselves up close. We've never put our hands inside of it and worked with it. We've never touched or worked around with the things that are inside of a laser printer. I can't open one up in my house and have a look at what's inside. It's almost the same situation with wide area network technologies. Now, fortunately, there's a single section on the CompTIA exam on WAN. So already we know it's not going to be an incredibly involved set of questions on your exam. You might get one WAN question because the WAN section is part of a larger section that's part of a larger group of sections that is part of a domain that's part of a huge group of domains. So you don't have to worry too much about understanding the nuances of it. And as it turns out, on the exam, CompTIA is tending to not ask a lot of trivial questions about these technologies. So even though traditionally we've always put in the exam content the speeds of SONET, or very specifically the speed of OC3, OC12, OC48, so that you can understand what the differences are between those, CompTIA, I think, just wants a broad understanding of how is this technology used, and relative to other technologies, what are the speeds that this technology is looking for? I don't think they're going to want down to the thousandth of a bit per second what the bandwidth is on these technologies. So don't worry so much about the detailed numbers. Have an understanding of how people use these technologies. You should know, for example, that SONET these days very commonly used by wide area network providers. It's often implemented in a ring type environment. Very commonly, they'll talk about, oh, we have a SONET ring around the city, and we have different people connecting to the SONET ring around the city. Because it's a ring, we've got redundancy. So if you break one part of the ring wraps around itself, and now all the rest of the ring stays up and running. So those are the things you need to know about. And SONET, very commonly used to put multiple types of traffic on. So it would be data traffic, it would be voice traffic, it would be video traffic, and all of that runs across the same SONET infrastructure, all on that particular ring by the network provider. Not many people have SONET rings now running in their local networks. I guess everybody pretty much running Ethernet in their local networks these days. Those are the broad strokes that you need to know, the broad terms, the broad usage of those. So when it talks about SONET or MPLS or even T1 and E1, which are increasingly more rare to find in actual use, those are the things you need to know. Why would you use T1 and E1? Where would you find those? Why would you use ISDN? ISDN has a very niche use today. Where would you see ISDN being used? So those are the broad strokes you need to know. And very casually, you kind of need to know where they fit in the hierarchy of speeds. But don't worry so much about the details of those. CompTIA will not ask you in an OC12, what is the megabits per second you would get for throughput? And explain. They're not going to give you that level of detail. They're going to ask you more of a broader question about SONET, how it is used and where it is used. That's more likely the type of thing you would run into.
So in that regard, just another question. Since what do you suggest would be questions that should have more focus, like are going to be emphasized more? Is it going to be related to the OSI model? Is it going to be related to how the like network security side of things, or like I am quite familiar with the OSI model presently, so I was just curious, like when you do take it, it sounds like to me each question on the Network Plus exam has different weight. Some topics are weighted more, some topics are weighted less, and frequency of questions differ depending on the topic.
And it's not really a topic so much as the domain that topic happens to come from. So on the exam, on the Network Plus exam, there are 5 different domains. There's networking concepts, infrastructure, network operations, network security, and network troubleshooting and tools. Now, for most of the exam, they're very almost evenly split. There's minor points of difference between. Networking concepts is 23% of the exam. So of everything in domain 1, which happens to include the OSI model and many, many, many other things, that's 23% of the questions you would get on the exam. Infrastructure is 18%, network operations is 17%, network security 20%, network troubleshooting and tools 22%. So they're almost even. They're almost 20% all the way down the line, except for minor differences there at the beginning and end. So you could look at all of the topics in section 1, all of the topics in domain 2, in domain 3, domain 4, and domain 5, and each one of those domains takes up 20% of the exam. We don't know how much OSI model is going to be because OSI model is in section 1, and in section 1 you've got ports and protocols, you've got the OSI model, you've got routing and switching, which goes through, in my listing, 18 different videos, including IPv4, IPv6, prioritization, circuit switching and packet switching, software-defined networking. Section 1.4 is network addressing, so you get into routing and IPv4 and IPv6. Section 1.5 is network topologies. Section 1.6 is wireless, so all the 802.11, all the wireless technologies, understanding the multi-user MIMO and all of those other associated things. 1.7 is the cloud. 1.8 is DNS and DHCP and NTP. So domain 1's huge. There's a lot of topics, only 23% of the exam. So all those things we just talked about, I say only 23%. That's still a significant number, but not a huge. It's the same amount that you have for infrastructure. It's the same amount that you have for network operations, for network security, for network troubleshooting and tools. So we don't know how much OSI will be on there. It could be, given how many topics are in section 1 and the fact that it's only 23% of the exam, you might not get any questions on the OSI model, which that kind of stinks because you know the OSI model really well. You might not get any questions about it. You might get 1. You might get 2. I doubt you get more than that, given how many questions there are and the randomness that goes on here. That's the situation you're in with these exams. You have to know all the topics because you don't know what they're going to ask. And that's kind of just the nature of industry certification exams from CompTIA, from Cisco, from Microsoft, or anyone else. You have to know everything because you never know what you'll be faced with when you finally sit down for the exam.
Okay. And one more thing, and I hope I'm not taking up too much time.
No, go ahead.
So after getting the Network Plus cert, like what kind of job entry does it open up all entry-level jobs? Because I'm also currently in school, so I'm kind of wondering, like does this, like what kind of job opportunities am I going to see open up with having a Network Plus certification?
The value of a certification is based on what you do with it. And in many cases, it's based on who wants you to have it. I think a lot of people want these certifications so that they can either get a job or get a better job. And that's certainly a completely valid, perfectly reasonable reason to get one of these certifications. Most entry-level jobs in our industry are jobs that are help desk jobs. So the very first job you get out of school is very commonly a help desk job. For the employer, they want you to know that you're familiar with these technologies when they sit you down. And in some environments, they want you to have an A+ certification. In some environments, they want you to have maybe a Network Plus certification. Some employers don't care if you have any certification. So it really, in that particular scenario, depends on the employer. They may be able to get people that are don't ask as much per hour because they don't have certifications yet. Or maybe they want to hire people with certifications so that they're not having to train you and have you start at the very bottom when you come in the door. You're at least knowledgeable in some of the technologies and what you can do with it. One of the things I did recently is I created a video which talked about how to get an IT job without experience. It is on my YouTube channel. If you go out or you just search the YouTube for how to get an IT job without experience, that kind of talks to those things because you need IT certifications, you need formal education, you need some practical experience, you need to know people that already work there. Those are what I call the 4 elements. The earth, the air, the fire. Those are the things when you're walking in the door for these jobs, you want to know how to get that job maybe right out of school, and certifications are going to help you with that. And it may be that the employer isn't specifically asking for the Network Plus, but the fact that they see it on your resume is a bonus to them. So you never know exactly how that may help you in the future. And ultimately, and that's another big part of this, is that you going through the Network Plus and learning all of these things are going to help you your entire career. So this is not a situation where you've gone through Network Plus and boy, that was stupid. I'm never going to learn, never going to need to know anything about IP again. I'm never going to need to know anything about DNS again. Yes, you will be using that your entire career. I'll never have to do a ping at the command line ever again. No, you'll be using it all the time. So that's one of those situations where there's some great skills you're getting from the Network Plus certification, even if an employer isn't specifically asking for it. But very commonly, your first job out of college or out of school or your first job in IT is going to be a help desk position. And very often having this knowledge in your back pocket will get you out of the help desk position and into something like server administration, network administration, security administration, or some other role within IT even faster. So it's really a combination of things, and it could help you immediately in the job role. It might help you later in the job role, or it may be one of these situations where it's just a nice thing to have on the resume that helps you personally. All of those, I think, are good things to have in your back pocket.
Okay. Another thing just came over, and so after taking the Network Plus, like what are the next steps? Like what certification should I go for next, or should I just after Network Plus, should I go start looking for a job, or should I start looking at other certifications? Because I've heard CISP is a very popular IT cert, but I've heard from a lot of folks that it's not a good idea to jump from Network Plus right onto CISP. You usually want to have some more background knowledge before taking that cert.
Well, there are a number of places to go from that point, and that's the reason I made that video of how to get an IT job without experience, which goes well beyond the scope of just how to get a job without IT experience. It's a 30-minute video that every minute of the video are multiple tips in there and important pieces of information, because I simply can't say it all when I get this question every single study group from people. I can give you the broad overview, but I'm always missing things. A lot of the questions you're asking are answered in that video, but very quickly, where you go next pretty much depends on what you want to do next. IT is very different than being a nurse, being in transportation, being a doctor, being in manufacturing, where there is a very specific path you have to take to get to the next level. With IT, you go to wherever interests you. Do you like databases? Go be a database administrator. Do you like networking? Go be a network administrator. Do you like operating systems? Something with Microsoft or Linux may be for you. Do you like security? You could go over on the security side. And it goes on and on and on. Do you like the cloud? Do you like the cryptography? You just keep going with this. So you figure out what you want to do and you go after that. But you want to be very careful. You don't fill up your resume with a bunch of certifications that are not going to help you when you walk in the door. You instead want to have the right kind of approach when you meet with an employer that tells the employer you're the best fit for that job. And then from there, you can branch out and go where you want to go. You don't have to do it all right now, and you're not going to do it all right now. And once you get your very first job, your interests are going to change anyway. You're going to have access to Active Directory and Microsoft and Linux and the network people and the security team and the database folks, the email team and the cloud-based computing team. You're going to see all these people working, and something's going to pique your interest. And then suddenly, you're going to want to know everything about those. The CISSP is a very common set of certifications to have. A lot of certifications in IT require that you have a certain amount of knowledge and industry experience. So there's some certifications you can't have until you've worked in IT for 3 to 5 years, depending on what that happens to be. So don't worry so much on what the next parts are after Network Plus. That's going to be obvious to you once you get there. And it's going to be obvious based on all the job postings you see. If every job posting that you come across in your particular geography, every single one of them has Security Plus as a requirement, you probably want to go take Security Plus. If every single one of them says you just need a minimum of an A+, then you probably are good with your A+ and Network Plus, and you can go after those positions. So there's no line in the sand. Nothing's written in stone. You get to decide where you go from that point on, and everybody has a different path.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Messer, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Anthony. Best of luck. You can't go wrong. It's a question without a wrong answer. What do you do next? Whatever you want. That is the broad answer in IT. That's one of the reasons I love this industry. That's one of the reasons I did this industry my entire career, because you just did whatever you liked. And if you got to be an expert in that thing you liked, people wanted to give you money for your knowledge about that expertise. That's just a fantastic place to be. And then, because I work on that particular expertise and I think, I want to do something over there. Let's learn about that one. Well, now I've become an expert in that. Now you're an expert in multiple things, and you're just adding on to the knowledge. They all work together to be able to have those things there. Back to the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. 202 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Reggie, and I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
Thanks for calling, Reggie. What can we do for you?
So I work as an IT manager for a Big Four consulting firm for the last 8 years in the D.C. government sector. I've taken many projects in the government sector, but with Corona and everything, I really want to specialize because I feel more uncertainty in the job market. And I have many roles from QA analyst to test engineer and scrum master. But I feel like I'm hitting a wall in available work, and I really want to build my foundation for the future. So I'm thinking of heading towards the CCNA AWS route, starting with the Network Plus. I'm on the software side, and this is a much more technical role for me. And my soft skills are pretty awesome, but I just need to build more credibility, I feel. Currently possessing my Scrum Master cert, and that's it. And considering I'm in D.C., Amazon just built a headquarters here, and DoD is here. Do you think that's a good route for me, or what would you suggest?
Well, you're an IT manager, so I just wanted to let you know I'm going to need tomorrow off. Is that okay? One of the benefits, and I will tell you, because I went from being a technical person, in fact, the job I told about being at a call center, I went from being a technical systems engineer for a Silicon Valley software company. And then I moved into an IT management position, a director of voice and data networking, where I was managing a bunch of people and was not doing a lot of the technical side of things. And it wasn't my gig. It wasn't my thing. I did enjoy the job. I liked the people I work with. I enjoyed the company I worked at. There were a lot of fun things that we did, but I wasn't in the trenches anymore. I had to ask other people to do the firewall configurations. I had to ask other people to capture the packets and look at the decodes. I had to ask other people to configure the things that they were doing. I wanted to be the one to do that. I like that part of it. And so I ended up leaving that IT management position and going back to being a systems engineer for a Silicon Valley company. So to me, I was much happier doing that system. In fact, from that point on, I made a pact with myself. I'm never doing IT management again. I just want to be a technical person. And I just continued to do that. And it was another one of those situations, since we're on that theme, that in IT, you can do anything you want. And if you become an expert at some of these technical things, you can make as much money as you can make in a management position, or at least somewhere close to it. It wasn't a financial hit to be a technical person. It was a different job. And I could certainly empathize with my managers who had to manage me at that point, because I would be in these positions or these places. In fact, I went to work for a startup. And with startups, you go in as a technical person, you very quickly can become a manager or director or a VP. Didn't want any of it. And they would come to me and say, okay, we're growing rapidly. Don't you want to be the manager of this group of people? Like, no, sir. Nope. Not my gig. You don't want me as the manager. Not only do I not want to be the manager, it will be horrible for you if I were the manager. They go, oh, okay, we got it. You just keep doing what you're doing. Go enjoy what you're working on there. So I absolutely get the idea of wanting to move into the technical role or be able to have a different set of skills that you can use over time to work with those. You're in a great part of the world. You're in a great geography to get knowledge on cloud and security. You are working in the cloud and security capital of the United States. There's no other there. I don't even know if they know of any other technologies other than cloud and security in the federal government. So those are fantastic places to be, great sets of knowledge to have. Everybody wants an expert in those particular technologies, and there's plenty of job openings in your neck of the woods for those types of knowledge. So you're absolutely on the right track. And if I was in your position, those are the types of technologies I would be studying for as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take that.
Good luck, Reggie. Best of luck with that.
Thanks, Professor. You're the best.
That's one of the things that it really depends on where you live. Reggie is in a fantastic part of the world for security and for cloud. That's the number one thing. Now, are there other things to know? Yeah. You could also do operating systems and networking and databases. There's plenty of places for those as well. But that's where everybody's shooting for. That's the big need right now in that particular part of the world. In Texas, it may be a completely different group of things. Maybe Texas is more cloud. Maybe LA is more security. It depends on what's in your area. Make sure you look at the job postings in your geography. Make sure you understand what the jobs are. In my video, How to Get an IT Job Without Experience, which I plugged 20 times now, but I made the video so that I could fit in all the things I can't tell you when we are live on this live stream. In that video, I talk about creating a spreadsheet, writing down every job in your area that matches your fit. That, if you're looking for an IT help desk position, because this is getting a job without experience, write down every single one of those in your area. Write down what their requirements are. Write down what they want you to have. Have an entire spreadsheet of these things. And once you've done 10 or 20 of those in your area, now you can look to see, are they all asking for an A+? Is everybody asking for an A+? Is nobody asking for an A+? You need to know that foundation now. You need to understand what people in your area are looking for. Are they asking a lot for Cisco? Are they asking a lot for Azure? Are they asking a lot for AWS or any cloud? Are they asking a lot for networking? Are they asking a lot for operating systems? You need to know this when you walk in the door. In fact, you could probably tell this is a great topic to bring up in your interview with someone. When you finally get in the door and they're talking to you about help desk, and you can say, well, in our area, of all the different help desk positions in this area, yours was the only one that asked about network experience. Why is that? The people that work in that particular job have no idea what everybody else is asking for, but you do. You have a knowledge now. You've accumulated this summary of intel on all the jobs in your area and what people want. And now you can start talking to them about the differences and about the similarities. And you can tell them 75% of the people that have job postings for help desk right now are looking for this. And then you can talk to them about that. Plus, it helps you know what you should be working on to be able to work through all of those. That's, to me, you being knowledgeable when you walk in the door about the job they want to put you in, puts you in a better position with that employer. They know you've spent time on this. You want this. You have an understanding of the entire market. And you haven't even done anything technical yet. You've just summarized what everybody else is doing, which you should be doing. I'm working on another video right now on, it's 2 videos actually. It's the 10 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And I go through, really it's 2 videos, 5 reasons and then 5 more reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. And in every single case, it's about attention to detail. Almost every single case, a lot of the cases, it's about attention to detail. It's about, what does your resume look like? What does your resume sound like? Are you customizing every resume that you're sending in for every position? I bet you're not. I bet you just have a basic resume and you're throwing it out to all of them. It's the spray and pray. It's the shotgun approach. Woof. Everybody you get a resume and you get a resume and you get a resume and you get a resume. It's the Oprah effect. But that doesn't help you. The person hiring asks very specific requirements. They ask for very specific things about you. Shouldn't the resume you provide to them effectively echo back their requirements? Shouldn't it have at the very top third a list of all the keywords that were in their job posting? Why doesn't it? Because they're going to look at it. We're looking for somebody that has A+, understands this network piece, has worked with Microsoft, and has knowledge working on telephones. And at the top of your resume, you should have a list of knowledgeable in Microsoft operating systems, networking, telephone systems. You should have all of those right at the top. It should be easy they should see and go, wow, this is exactly what we were asking for. But I bet your resume doesn't, because you didn't customize it. It takes minutes to customize. We're not talking about rewriting your entire resume every time, just the top third. And there's a very modular way to do it. I'm going to show that in my video, and we're going to talk through it. But it should talk back to them. It also helps get through the automation that they have in place. Almost everybody has these candidate automation systems that are reading your resume first, looking for the keywords, and then if it passes the test, it goes to the rest. Well, shouldn't you be writing your resume with the keywords? Shouldn't you be just hacking the system and going right past and going right to the top of the list? And of course you should. So these are things that I think are blocking and tackling. I think they're the fundamentals of working with resume that we talk about sometimes in our after show. Obviously, a lot of my videos are technical videos that get you the certification. That's only part of the equation. You have to finally get the job. So I'm absolutely working on that. I'm building individual resumes that describe good and bad, so you can see on the screen what the differences are when I'm talking about these things. So there's a little more work to do there, but I've got all 10 of these things laid out. I know what all 10 of these topics are. I just need to make the video and make them available to you. When I have the spare time, when there's nothing else going on, I'll make you a video. This is what I do. So there's always time to do some of these things. It'll be some good stuff. I'll finally get it out there. You have to subscribe to the channel and smash the bell or whatever the kids say to be able to see that. So that helps me a lot. For those of you that haven't done that, I will give that final pitch at the end. The reason content providers tell you, please subscribe to my channel, is because the folks at YouTube look at that. We have over 430,000 subscribers to our channel now. I am thankful for every single one of you. I got an email yesterday from my YouTube rep, because I have a YouTube person now assigned to me. We talk every so often, every month or so, every couple of months. And she said, we got a thing going on with education. You got anything that you want to put in this list? I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. Education. Let's do a live. I'll give you a list of things, and send them back to her. And she's going to post them on that site. So it's a great conversation that we're having to be able to have those pieces there. Technically speaking, I haven't really mentioned this. Technically speaking, prior to me moving to YouTube, prior to YouTube existing, I was on a platform called blip.io, which was a thing at the time. Blip.io does not exist anymore. And for a little bit of time, I was on Vimeo. I had 1 million views on that platform overall. And then I shifted over and went to YouTube, and we have 99 million views on YouTube. I squish those together. I'm calling it. I've got 100 million views now. So it's a huge number for us. It doesn't change anything. I'm happy and so excited about it. I'm very pleased with it. It's thanks to you. So I wanted to thank you at the end of the study group here for that. We high five around here and say, yes, that's a great number. Now let's do another 100. So we're taking this and just building on it. And I keep telling people all the time, you've watched the videos. Just if you keep watching, I'm just going to keep making them. So the numbers, I think they take care of themselves. I am very pragmatic when it comes to this. I am not a YouTube star. I'm not trying to be that. The numbers are very gratifying. It lets me know that you're interested in the content, and I'm going to keep making better and more content. So that's what I get from it. I want you to get from it that I feel it, and I'm seeing it, and I will just continue to do this. We're just going to keep riding it and keep doing it. And we got new things happening and new products coming and new ideas coming and all of those types of things. So just keep watching, and you tell me what you'd like. And I'll just keep making those things. Very easy to have that functionality there. Just hit the contact us link. Goes right to me. So you're welcome to send those messages in. I read everything you send to me. I'm not able to respond back to all of them. I try. But I absolutely do read through everything you send me. So the adjustments we've made, the changes we've made, the updates we've made, the things that we do are for you being able to get a job or get a better job. Number of views on YouTube is sort of a byproduct of that. As long as we keep making things that will get you a job or get you a better job, then I think we've accomplished our goal. That is our objective. Well, that brings us to the end of another Network Plus study group. 2 hours worth of Q&A today. Thank you for being there with us. Thanks, chat room, for your first hour of sitting through me asking you questions. And thank you for your questions in the second hour. We had some great questions today. So I appreciate you doing that as well. We'd love to have you come back. We do one of these every month. Feel free to stop back by next month for our next study group, or come back next week when we have our Security Plus study group. Haven't even written the questions yet. Have no idea what it's going to be. Come back in a week and you'll find out along with the rest of us. Hopefully I'll have some questions written soon. We'd love to have you here for that. Thanks for being here for the Network Plus study group and the after show. And we will see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.